Suspended public protector advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane has denied that she targeted certain people for nefarious purposes during her investigations. Mkhwebane is testifying for a second day in the Section 194 inquiry probing her fitness to hold office. She's testified on her investigation into the CR17 BOSASA complaint against President Cyril Ramaphosa. Mkhwebane faces charges of misconduct and incompetence in that she allegedly targeted certain people in her investigations, such as Ramaphosa. But Mkhwebane has poured cold water to these allegations, saying she was responding to complaints lodged with her office. She pointed out that the complainants in the CR17 BOSASA investigation were former DA leader Busisiwe Mkhwebane and EFF Deputy President Floyd Shivambu. Mkhwebane has also insisted that her CR17 investigation concluded that Ramaphosa knew about the donations to his campaign and the donors involved. She says she based this finding on emails that were in her possession. All right, now let's get analysis on advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane's second day at the inquiry looking into her fitness to hold office. We're now joined via Zoom by Elton Hart from the University of Johannesburg's Law Clinic. Thank you so much for your time, Elton. Now, let's start with tomorrow very briefly. Significant utterances made by advocate Mkhwebane yesterday on her first day of her testimony. She told how she had no peace, essentially, since she took office. Talked about a political witch hunt against her, from so-called untouchables, continuously taking her to court, essentially making the point that there was no reason for her fitness to hold office to be investigated. Your thoughts about her testimony yesterday?
No, obviously she had to set the scene to say that, listen, I'm human and I can make mistakes. And I see that is the angle that her legal representative is trying to take also, to say, listen, any person can make mistakes, and even going down the tangent of saying that sometimes High Court judges makes orders, and then the Supreme Court of Appeal, whereas a couple of justices would criticize that High Court judges, and nobody goes back and say, but judges, you are incompetent to do your job. So when it comes to the public protector, why are you saying she's incompetent to do her job just because some different body looked at the evidence and said, listen, how you interpreted the law was incorrect. There's a different interpretation. And she's saying technically that I interpreted the law as I read it and as I understood it. And I'm not saying this is the only version or only way that it can be interpreted. There's different versions. And based on that, I should not then be so said or told that I'm unfit. It's just that maybe your interpretation does not accord with the general interpretation that legal practitioners would give it out there in the public domain. And I've looked at the testimony, and it's like she's trying to now sort of say that the DA who's now bringing this motion against her were the very same ones that ran to her office seeking her help. So she's actually technically trying to say to the public out there and to us listening that the DA actually set a trap for her to step in, and then she stepped into the trap, and now they want to now actually slaughter her for their foul cries that they brought to her.
Do you get a sense, just listening, having listened to her testimony yesterday and today, that she is somewhat portraying herself as a victim?
No, definitely she's saying that she's a victim. It's out there, because I think she even went as far as saying that the Constitutional Court judges sort of like was targeting her, and she even said that these decisions only came against her because of her skin color. And I think that was taking it a little bit too far. I thought that she should have stayed within the parameters of the inquiry and actually just narrowed it down to the issues at hand. And obviously, I know these things, how she got into this inquiry, it was triggered by certain events that is well known in the public. It is the Falafala investigation and the BOSASA investigation. And if she could just try and narrow down her legal argument and say, this is when I actually made adverse findings against certain individuals, this process was triggered against me, and try to demonstrate and illustrate to show that here is legal processes being used in political warfare against me because I made unfair or adverse findings against a person, then I think she would be on the right track, and not to try and win the sympathy of the public to say I'm being unfairly treated, and try and also now bring in politics into this. Try and show to the public just simple, plain parameters of the law, parameters of the constitution to say that this is my office and this is what my work entails and this is what I must do. I must deliver a report. Be it within a specific time, I must deliver a report. And if a court feels that my work was not done properly, then so be it. I'm subject to review by courts of law.
Let's look at some of, her testimony around her investigation and the questions that she's been asked around the President CR17, BOSASA, those campaigns and how, she's answering, especially to allegations that she targeted specific people, particularly President Cyril Ramaphosa.
That in itself, where she says she targeted specific people, that already creates the impression and it sets the tone that so you were out to get specific individuals and not to say there is a complaint, fully investigated and see who's all the implicated parties and then bring out your interim report. If you have not spoken to all of them, then eventually you are required to bring out your final report, and in your final report you can amend your interim report. You don't need to stick to things that you've mentioned in your interim report. You might say in the interim report, it seems the evidence suggests this, but I'm not done that because this is outstanding. But to just say that she targeted President Ramaphosa, then it suddenly now starts creating that impression that you are out to get President Ramaphosa and not specifically to do your work in line and within the parameters of the Constitution.
Just talk to us about what we are likely to expect just in the next few days. We know that she is expected to testify up until the end of this month. We heard yesterday her legal representative, Advocate Dali Mbofu, was saying that, of course, they are very unhappy that they could not also just cross-examine and question, some of the witnesses that we've seen already testify.
No, obviously, it is now where we sit in Parliament, and with due respect to the officials that sits in this inquiry, they are not legally trained. So sometimes there is certain things that is done that does not accord with the Constitution. It does not accord with principles in law. Because like sometimes you get witnesses saying certain things, and these are witnesses that used to work in the Public Protector's Office. So for us, the cautionary rule as legal professionals needs to kick in to say that this is an aggrieved party. You need to treat it with caution. And they will just look at, okay, this person is saying that, okay, that evidence is there. And now she needs to come and rebut that evidence. So the process a little bit, I think the playing field is a little bit uneven, say maybe 60-40 against the public protector. And maybe if people look at these things, they need to do that. And what we will see in the next couple of days is like she will go at the evidence of each individual of these witnesses, and obviously she will try and play on the sympathy of people watching this inquiry to say that she's being unfairly treated, and that has been her tone, to say that she partakes in certain events. At some stage she said under protest, and I think if you don't have something to hide, then you must say, okay, right, even if they find that I have contravened the Constitution and I am impeachable, you can still fight it in court. So just subject you to the process. Look and let's observe to see if these people treat you unfairly or not. And obviously, there should have been ground rules set also for this committee. And I think the committee should be better constituted to actually have people with legal backgrounds sitting on that committee, representing the different political parties, because they do have legally trained people in their ranks.
All right, Mr. Hart, thank you so much for your analysis this afternoon. Really do appreciate it. Elton Hart from the University of Johannesburg's Law Clinic.